crack of a sniper's bullet split the dusk, grazing the air an inch from my skull. I was on my own land, my sanctuary, when death whispered my name. Instinct kicked in, muscle memory from years in the field. I dropped flat, rolling behind a cedar pile, my breath steady as a metronome. 2 seconds to trace the shot's path. 30 yards out, tree line, second shadow from the left. The fool lingered for another shot. His last mistake. I was already moving low, fast, silent, a predator in my own right. By the time his bolt-action rifle clicked for a second round, my 9mm was locked on him. One shot to the dome. Clean. Efficient. The echo faded, and his body slumped, a marionette with cut strings. Then his phone buzzed, face up beside his limp hand. A text from Emma. Did you get a headshot? I don't want an open casket. No emotion, just cold data. I wiped my gloves, picked up the phone, and typed with my left thumb. 2. Emma, target down. Meet at the house to pay. I left him there, his corpse a banquet for the ants, erasing the last traces of my old life. Emma was waiting on the porch when I pulled up, legs crossed, eyes glassy. Her makeup too perfect for someone who just ordered a hit. Beside her sat Jake Monroe, the local cop, holster on his hip, a beer in his hand, lounging like he owned the place. I parked deliberately slow, letting them stew as I stepped out of the truck. Emma's smile flickered when I didn't return it. You okay? She asked, her voice laced with a practiced concern that didn't reach her eyes. Job's done, I said flat. Thought you'd want to celebrate. Jake chuckled, his grin smug. You look like you've seen a ghost. Close. We stepped inside the house, and I locked the door behind us. The silence settled like ash after a fire. Once, I'd have taken a bullet for Emma. Hell, I almost did tonight. 12 years married. Through every deployment. Every sleepless night in hostile territory. She'd wait up, she said, unable to sleep unless she knew where my boots were. She learned my mother's stew recipe, taped my letters to the fridge, called me her hero to anyone who'd listen. I believed her. God help me, I believed every word. Jake was just the guy who fixed our fence when I was overseas. Harmless, always around, always too available. The first crack came with her phone. She stopped, leaving it face up. Then the long showers, the late-night errands. And the night she called me Jake in bed. I didn't react, didn't blink. I just watched, cataloged, memorized. Confirmation hit in a hardware store. A clerk handed me 2 receipts, one mine, one Emma's. Same store, same morning, different card, different shipping address. I drove to the address. There was Jake, shirtless on a porch, her inside folding my t-shirts like it was her home. I didn't break. I didn't shout. I walked away. 3 weeks. That's how long it took to rewire the game. A storage unit under a fake name became my war room. I collected digital evidence, texts, GPS logs, call histories. She backed it all up to our cloud. A gift wrapped in her own carelessness. I built a timeline, cross-referenced dates. The affair started while I was on active duty, dodging IEDs in a desert half a world away. Under military law, adultery during deployment is court-martial material. In our state, it nullifies spousal claims in a divorce. She'd lose everything. House, savings, the life she thought she'd secured. Jake was dirtier. Internal Affairs already had him in their sights for evidence tampering. All they needed was a push. The sniper? A mercenary, ex-cartel runner. I found his listing on a dark web forum Emma bookmarked under a fake account tied to her old email. She paid in crypto, sloppy enough for me to trace. Every thread led back to them. I didn't pull the trigger metaphorically until tonight. Inside, Emma poured wine, her hands steady but her eyes darting. I didn't touch the glass. You gonna tell us how it went? She asked, her voice too bright. Jake smirked, leaning back. Yeah, man. He screamed. I studied them like chess pieces on a board I'd already won. No scream. Jake raised an eyebrow. What did you use? Doesn't matter. I stood, placing 2 folders on the table, one for Emma, one for Jake. They opened them, and their faces drained as their own words spilled out. Texts, photos, call logs, GPS pings, voice recordings. Emma's folder held the crypto wallet tied to her face scan, the wire transfer to a known assassin. Jake's was thicker. Internal Affairs would have a field day with his history of misplaced evidence, now tied to a murder-for-hire plot. What is this? Jake's voice was a low growl. Evidence, I said. Everything Internal Affairs needs to bury you. Everything the DA needs for conspiracy to commit murder. And everything a divorce judge needs to cut Emma out clean. Emma's voice trembled, but her eyes were dry. You wouldn't. I already did. Their phones buzzed in unison. A message from Daniel Cross, my attorney. You've both been served. Emma shot to her feet. You can't do this. I met her gaze, unblinking. You hired someone to kill me, Emma. Her face cracked, not with regret, but panic. Jake stood, his hand hovering near his holster. Look, we can talk about this. You'll talk to your lawyer. I didn't flinch as he stepped closer. Touch that gun, and I'll have you arrested before you hit the floor. You think they'll believe you? He spat. They already do. There are cameras in this house. Audio too. Running for weeks. You both just confessed. They froze, statues in a crumbling empire. I opened the front door. Leave. Emma whispered, please. But her voice was hollow. She walked past me, a ghost of the woman I once loved. Jake followed, his eyes burning with hate. It didn't matter. They were already dead to me. I just handed them the shovel. I sat on the porch alone, in the same chair where we used to watch sunsets, her hand warm in mine. Now, the air was cold, the silence heavier than a loaded clip.
No guilt. No right.
Revenge done right doesn't scream. It whispers, then walks away. But the game wasn't over. Emma and Jake thought they'd played me, but they didn't know the board. The sniper's phone was still in my pocket, its data a goldmine. I'd already mirrored it, pulled his contacts, his payment history. He wasn't working alone, there was a handler, someone higher up the chain. Emma's crypto trail led to a second wallet, one she didn't know I'd found. It was tied to a name. Victor Kane, a fixer known for cleaning up messes for the elite. If Emma was desperate enough to hire a hitman, she was desperate enough to be someone's pawn. I lit a cigarette, the ember glowing in the dark. Kane's name was a loose thread, and I wasn't done pulling. Tomorrow I'd start digging bank records, shell companies, maybe a burner phone or two. If Kane was involved, this wasn't just about Emma's betrayal. It was bigger, a network, a machine, and I was the wrench. The stars were out now, sharp against the night. I exhaled, watching the smoke curl like a promise. They thought they'd buried me. They didn't know I was the one holding the dirt.